Now, we go to Albuquerque, New Mexico, for a debate between the candidates for governor. Incumbent Governor Gary Johnson faces his Democratic challenger, former Albuquerque Mayor Martin Chavez. This event, hosted by KOB-TV, is about an hour long.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this live debate between the two men running for governor of New Mexico. I'm Carla Aragon.
And I'm Tom Joles. 1 week from tomorrow, voters will go to the polls to elect one of these two men standing up here tonight. Republican Governor Gary Johnson and Democratic challenger Martin Chavez have both prepared opening statements. Now, we flipped a coin a while ago to determine who goes first, and we will alternate turns after that. Each candidate has 30 seconds for their opening statement. We begin with Mr. Johnson.
Well, I think that my election 4 years ago was a statement that New Mexicans didn't want business as usual in Santa Fe. I have brought a common-sense business approach to state government. It's resulted in increased educational funding, Medicaid reform, fewer state employees, new highways, new prisons, welfare reform, all of which were accomplished while lowering taxes. I believe that my election was a worthwhile investment. I believe that it's an investment worth continuing.
Mr. Chavez, we'd like to hear your opening statement.
I'd like to speak first to the young people of New Mexico. No matter what anyone tells you, you're not going to win the lottery. You're not going to go to one of the casinos and strike it rich. There's only one way to get ahead. You've got to stay in school and work hard. Stay in school and work hard. I envision a New Mexico with schools as good as you and with the economy prosperous enough so that you can realize your dreams in New Mexico.
All right, we have a unique format tonight. We hope to give the candidates a chance to interact and really get to the heart of some of the significant issues in our state.
We start with several general questions. Each of the candidates will respond to the same question, and they will do it in 45 seconds or less. We will add questions if time permits. After each candidate responds, there will be an open rebuttal for up to 2 minutes.
Now, a timekeeper will show a yellow flag when the candidate has 15 seconds left. There it is. Thank you, Becky. A red flag will be raised when time is up.
Now, each candidate was allowed to invite 150 supporters to be part of the live audience, and we thank you very much for being here, but we do ask for the audience to refrain from outbursts or any type of applause until after each candidate responds.
All right, let's begin with our first question. Both of you have had success in politics. Now both of you want to be governor, and it's obvious you don't want to share the job. So, explain to us why you are better suited to be governor than the man standing next to you. And we'll begin with Mr. Chavez.
Well, first off, Tom, I've got a record of accomplishment. As mayor of Albuquerque, we did so many good things. We brought down violent crime, virtually eradicated graffiti, turned the corner on water, developed the first written economic development blueprint for the city of Albuquerque, built the bridge, the biopark, Civic Plaza, a record of accomplishment. This election's about vision for the future. Given my record, I know I can get things done. I know that we can invest properly in our children's future. It's all about. I didn't start talking about it just. I've been talking about it from day one. I've been talking the talk and walking the walk.
You'll get your chance to talk more a little bit later. Why do you think you're better suited to be governor than Mr. Chavez?
Well, and I'm not going to pretend to tell people that I'm not going to talk about my opponent. I haven't talked about my opponent this whole race. My focus has been on what I've done as governor and what I intend to do in the future. And as is in my opening statement, we have significantly increased educational funding, $300 million a year more per year into education today than when I took office. We've reformed Medicaid in the state of New Mexico, which is very, very significant. Better health care to the poor at less money. We have fewer state employees, which means that we're saving money. We're running a more efficient government. We're building new highways, 500 miles of new highways. We're building 2 new prisons to combat the crime problem that we have in the state. We reformed welfare. If you can work, you will work. And we did all of this while actually reducing taxes.
All right. We have 2 minutes for the rebuttal. Who wants to jump in?
Well, not much to rebut. Certainly I will never take credit for things I didn't do as governor. What I want to seize upon are the possibilities for the future and the tremendous needs we have in New Mexico, because we know that every single indicator of economic prosperity has declined in the last 4 years. We're now ranked the worst state in the United States of America in which to raise a child. This is horrible. We dropped 14 places in just the last 4 years. The task force that is addressing the equity needs of our schools has identified $1.2 billion in capital needs, $263 million of which is associated with overcrowding. Who's got the plan to address those problems?
And I just want to make sure I just get 1 minute.
Jump in. That's the.
But I'm assuming I'm allowed to finish what I have to say.
Absolutely. You know, you're talking about the future. Yeah.
Okay. We need to have parents once again involved in their children's education. We need higher standards for the schools. And let's look at what we have to do. Teachers have to adhere to higher standards.
We have about a minute yet left, so go ahead.
Okay, great.
Yeah, just...
Well, again, talking about the future, and there's the future, and I appreciate a format like this where you can see the differences here. Talking about the future, I think that there needs to be real accountability when it comes to education. So I think that long-term, in New Mexico, we're looking at expanding charter schools. Long-term, I believe in vouchers. I believe in parents and kids having the ability to choose between public and private schools. That we get rid of good time in the state of New Mexico. That we reduce taxes, meaningful tax reduction in the state of New Mexico, income taxes. We reduce the amount of uninsured motorists in the state, and all those things that I talked about earlier. All these things are plugged in. They're very significant for the future of New Mexico. I don't want to see those unplugged. We need to maintain the course that we're already on.
You have 15 seconds.
Sure. Bottom line is, none of the things my opponent talked about have been accomplished in the last 4 years. That's why I'm running for governor. Children can't afford 4 more years of what we had.
Okay,
we can have schools as good as our children.
Okay. There are a lot of people who are concerned about your relationship, both of your relationship with the state legislature. Governor, you're seen as confrontational with the legislature. Mr. Chavez, you're seen as too chummy with the Democratic leadership, including your wife's relative, Manny Aragon. Governor, what are you going to do to be more productive with the state legislature? And Mr. Chavez, how can citizens be assured that there will be some checks and balances between the governor's office and the legislature? And we're going to start first with Governor Johnson.
Well, I want to make one thing really clear. I wasn't elected to go up and get along with the legislature in New Mexico. That clearly...
He's only got 45 seconds. Don't take his time.
I promised to bring a common-sense business approach to state government. Had never been involved in politics before, so I think people were making a real statement. They didn't want to see the status quo when it came to going up to the legislature and interacting with the legislature. So talking about the earlier accomplishments, you know, educational funding, Medicaid reform, fewer state employees, these have been battles that have been fought out with the legislature. New highways without raising taxes, new prisons, privately designed, built, operated,
frankly,
financed,
these are
welfare reform.
These are things,
you've got 45
these
seconds.
are things for the most part that were accomplished by the legislature.
Wait, now, aren't we off key here a little bit?
He gets to answer the question, then we get open rebuttal for 2 minutes.
Let me
this
say
isn't
this.
the rebuttal period.
Let me say
not
this.
yet.
Got it.
He gets to answer. Let's start your 45 seconds now.
When I ran for mayor, my opponent's party sent a huge mailing around the city of Albuquerque and said, if you vote for Marty Chavez, you're going to get those legislative leaders. What did Albuquerque got? They got a tough, independent mayor, and I got things done. Anyone that knows my record knows it's one of independence. I disagreed with the legislative leadership and the governor on gambling. I disagreed with the legislative leadership and the governor on liquor. I'm my own man. Now, here's the difference, because I don't believe you have to surrender your convictions to work with people of different philosophies. I'll work with whomever New Mexicans elect to represent them in the legislature. We'll have disagreements, but I won't call them names. I won't threaten them. You don't get things done that way, and that's why so little has been accomplished the last 4 years. Our children deserve...
You know, before we go to the rebuttal, we really need to make this clear. Just a second, Marty.
Sure.
We really need to make this clear with the audience. No applause, no outbursts until after the closing statements. That's when you can cheer your candidate. We want to hear from the candidates first, and then you can react.
It just takes time away from this debate tonight.
Yeah, 2 minutes rebuttal. What is your position with the legislature? How are you going to handle it? Go at it. You too.
I'm not here to be a fight, but go ahead.
Well,
Mr.
yeah,
Johnson,
I think the big difference is that if my opponent is elected, he is promising everything to everyone, and that one of two things is going to happen. Either he doesn't deliver on the promises to everybody that he's making, or that we're going to have the largest tax increase the state has ever seen. And I think, really, I think if Marty's up there as governor, I think citizens of New Mexico, guard your pocketbook, because it is doomed.
No matter how you slice that, it's baloney. No matter how you slice it, it's baloney. Here's what I understand. There are 3 separate branches of government, and we're elected to go up there to get things done. So certainly you don't always agree, but you work with the different branches. That's our Constitution. That's why we had the first governor in history to be held in contempt of our Supreme Court for violating the Constitution the New Mexicans fought and died for. And this will never happen in my administration. But let me
held
finish.
In contempt was because I held out for meaningful welfare reform. I held out that the legislature have a meaningful job requirement. And I think that battle was worthwhile, because right now we have a meaningful job requirement.
You know, what the governor did is he signed the very same bill that he vetoed.
No, Marty, it was a different bill, or I wouldn't have done that. It was a different bill, or I wouldn't have done that.
You know, this is just silly. We're the second to last state in the United States of America to have welfare reform. We had the humiliation of a governor held in contempt of court, and he ended up signing the very same bill he vetoed in the first place. There was never an argument over work. It was about politics. It was about taking money and putting it into billboards to self-congratulate for success. What a waste of taxpayer money.
Okay, 15 seconds. Anything else? We're talking about the legislature. Okay, let's go on.
Citizens have been well served by the conflict. Again, business as usual. Stay down the path of change.
Next question. I'm a parent. There are a lot of parents in this room. There are a lot of parents in our viewing audience. We all want our children to do well, and they cannot succeed without a good education. What is your prescription for making our schools better? We begin with Mr. Chavez.
First, I think we need to raise standards. Teachers, we've got to raise standards. Fully 40% of our teachers in New Mexico that teach math did not major in math in college. How will they excite a child to math if it didn't excite them? We've got to raise standards for our children. This business of social promotion, which my opponent has supported, has got to stop. You don't do a child a favor by promoting from 6th to 7th grade if they haven't met their minimum equivalencies. And parents have got to get involved once again. Our schools lack accountability, and I propose objective criteria by which to evaluate schools. And then, of course, I believe strongly we should have full-day kindergarten and smaller class size. Every study indicates that this is one of the best expenditures of the tax dollar if you want to have kids succeed.
Mr. Johnson, how do we make our schools better?
Well, one thing that I said that I was going to do over the last 4 years, and those people that voted for me, we said we really wanted to increase educational funding. So that has been a priority of this administration. I actually proposed a bill a couple sessions ago that would have increased funding as a percentage of the budget to 50%. Now, that didn't pass the legislature, but what you've seen over the last 4 years is an actual increase in the amount of dollars that we've allocated toward education. Now, dollars are not the only answer. We really do need accountability. I would like to see the state school superintendent become a cabinet secretary. You saw the legislature pass a 9% salary increase. I signed on that. And in Albuquerque, you haven't seen that salary increase get to the actual teachers. If the state school superintendent were a cabinet secretary, I guarantee that more of that money would reach the classroom. Talking about vouchers, talking about charter schools. 45 seconds, man. That's,
well, here you've got another 2 minutes to talk.
2 minutes, yeah.
Well, talking about
vouchers, charter schools,
very quickly, talking about his social promotion bill that Marty always talks about, that I vetoed, a social promotion bill. Really, what that would have done is just created another layer of bureaucracy in state government that we didn't need. The school districts have the mechanism in place already to do that. And here's another difference between the two of us, is Marty believes that that all these laws do solve all these problems. And I suggest that the laws are already on the books if we just take care of what we already have. I mean, we don't need to slough off these responsibilities.
Well, let's say what the law says. It says right now the parents decide whether their children get promoted. Not the teacher, not the administrators, but the parents. Very few parents are willing to keep their kids back. We know why. The social embarrassment, it's tough on those kids. What the bill that the governor vetoed would have said was that teachers get to be in charge of who gets promoted.
And
if you don't make the grades,
it created another layer of bureaucracy.
If I could finish my point.
You know, this is a free-for-all. You just have to be fairly civil here.
I'm not going to engage in the free-for-all. I'm here to set out my vision for the future of New Mexico. There are differences between my opponent and me. I won't interrupt him. I want to finish my point. Teachers, once again, got to decide if the student gets promoted. If you don't make the grades, you don't get promoted. That's the way it should be. And again, you don't, as a matter of fact, one of the problems with dropouts in New Mexico is because we've been promoting kids from one grade to the next that haven't met their minimum equivalencies. There is so much to do, so little time for our kids, and we've had basically nothing happen for the last 4 years. And it's not all my opponent's fault. The legislature's got to share responsibility too. That's why I want to go to Santa Fe.
What I might ask on this 2 minutes is maybe you could put up a little signal
15
with
seconds.
1 minute to go, so that at least if I don't interrupt my opponent, I might have a minute also. Talking about real educational reform, I think that lies in school vouchers, allowing parents and kids the ability to choose between private and public schools. And in New Mexico,
to move on to the next question.
May I say one thing? Let's make it a fair free-for-all. You be the police officers here.
Well, again, I don't want to interrupt, Marty. I don't want to interrupt you, but if you are going to take a minute and want to not be interrupted, I'd just like the same minute. That's all.
Or we can referee. No,
Well,
actually, what we want is interaction, because we want to hear ideas. You both have very different ideas. And how about this question? I don't know. There are 4 men sitting on death row right now, according to the Department of Corrections. As governor, you will make the ultimate decision about their lives. Will you enforce the death penalty? And we start with Governor Johnson. You've got 45 seconds.
Well, I would absolutely enforce the death penalty. And just this last legislative session, I had a bill before the legislature, and that's the difference between my opponent and I also, is getting along with the legislature, bucking the legislature. I want to see a law passed, and I had a law up there passed to make New Mexico similar to Texas, that there only be 2-year limit on appeal for those convicted of murder and sentenced to death, so that we would make the death sentence an actual deterrent to the crime. So it's my belief that punishment, if implemented, does deter crime, and that certainly applies to the death penalty. And again, that's the difference that we have with the legislature. I don't get along with the legislature when it comes to their wanting to not enforce the laws that we have on the books.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Chavez.
Well, I've always supported the death penalty. I've voted for it on a number of occasions. So there's no difference there. But here is the difference. Respecting the Constitution, respecting the different branches of government, I can get legislation passed. All the ideas in the world don't make any difference if you can't pass that bill. And this is one of the problems with the last 4 years. Great idea there, but it doesn't mean anything. I'll make them into law. Not because it's chummy with the legislature, but because intellectually I understand the process and respect it. It's our Constitution.
What do you think about what he has to say? Excuse me.
Well, no, so question. You would support the same kind of a law that I propose to limit appeal to 2 years, modeled after Texas?
I supported those laws way before you even thought of them, Mr. Johnson.
Oh, so does that mean yes?
Answer is yes. I support them way before you ever thought of them. But the difference is, I'll make them happen. And that's what we need to have happen. That's why my opponents only passed 1 bill in 4 years regarding education. I mean, you have to understand the system that our founding fathers gave us. You have to respect it. Doesn't mean you agree with people that others elect, but you work with them.
Very good.
You build consensus, and that's what a leader does.
Well, and talking about the laws, you know, I have the distinction of having vetoed a lot of bills since I've been governor of New Mexico, about 375, I believe, and so many of these bills had to do with balancing the checkbook, just like we do in our lives, but so many of those bills had to do with freedoms, you know, that are we willing to part with the freedoms that we have? And so I've looked at this very judiciously. So the fact that I don't pass many bills, well, the legislature doesn't want to see me pass many bills, and I would think that actually New Mexico is better served just taking the laws that we have right now and enforcing the laws that we already have before we start layering more laws on top of laws that we already have that we're not enforcing.
See, and the problem there then is that we'll never have smaller class size, we'll never have full-day kindergarten, we're not going to have higher standards in education.
And talking very quickly about all-day kindergarten and limiting classroom size.
The governor
talking
needs to
very
be...
quickly. That power exists right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and interrupt.
That power exists right now.
And
that you can limit classroom size.
Make it happen.
Because you'll devastate schools for a decade by mandating all-day kindergarten and limiting classroom size.
Our time is up for the death penalty
funding that will go into that will decimate the schools.
We're going to move on to the next one.
It will absolutely decimate the schools.
Ready?
Sure. Full-day kindergarten is going to decimate
when
the
it comes
schools.
to funding.
Let's move
when
on.
it comes to funding, it will decimate the schools.
You'll get a chance later to maybe talk about this more. Time to move on. New Mexico has a lot of people in prison, and it seems like more are headed that way. The next time we have to build a prison, should it be a state or private prison, and why? We begin with Mr. Chavez.
I believe certainly that they should be public prisons. The current system we had is frankly really fraught with all kinds of problems. We're not saving any money. We're spending fully $24 million a year, 24% more a year on corrections than we were 4 years ago without a commensurate increase in the number of people that are being housed. Those are taxpayer dollars that are being used to train those guards in the private facilities. Those are taxpayer dollars that are being used to send the SWAT teams in because we're now importing murderers, predators from out of state into our facilities. We very strongly disagree on this, but I want to make this clear. In the Chavez administration, there will always be a cell for those who are convicted of crimes. That was my record as mayor. I'm the first one in the state to put people in tents.
All right. Mr. Johnson, he says that the private prisons are actually costing us more.
Well, the significance of the private prisons. The significance of the private prisons are we're meeting a need, and not only are we meeting a need, but we're saving money. $30 a day per prisoner per day versus the cost that we incur right now as a state. So what's significant is that we are meeting a need, and with this savings, $30 a day, we're able to put that money into education. It wasn't by mistake that we're putting $300 million a year more into education. It isn't by mistake that we're four-laning 500 miles of highway. It isn't by mistake that we have a big surplus right now. It's not by mistake that we can put money back into people's pockets so they don't have to pay for taxes. This is a real significant difference between the two of us. Run government as efficient as you possibly can, and that's money that you can spend elsewhere. So run prisons efficiently.
All right, I'm a little confused. I don't know where you're getting your figures. You're saying private prisons save us money?
No, no. He's saying the prisons are costing us more. All right? But if we would have had the state of New Mexico run those prisons, they would have been even $30 a day more per prisoner per day. The average cost in New Mexico is about $80 a day per prisoner. The new prisons are $50 a day, approximately. So you got a $30 a day savings. It costs us more in the aggregate. And then getting back to your point earlier, Tom, about we have so many prison beds in New Mexico, I don't know of any state in the United States that has fewer prison beds than the state of New Mexico. Is there a reason that we have such a high crime rate in New Mexico? It's because we haven't been locking up prisoners. And Marty, I appreciate the fact that you'll lock criminals up, but it's actually happened under this administration.
We're spending $33 million a year more in corrections than we were 4 years ago. Remember 3 years ago, Secretary Sanek?
I agree. You don't have to go off on that one. I agree with that.
Secretary Sanek said, when my opponent said, we're going to save $80 million a year, and I challenged the legislature to put that money into education, he said, those numbers are mythical. He got fired. Well, about a month later, it was down to $60 million. By last account, it was around $40 million.
Actually, if you do the math,
a new prison,
if you do away with the entire state
system at the same time, and you're drowning each other out.
I let Mr. Johnson speak. It's my turn to speak. If you build a new prison today and try to compare the cost, the efficiencies in it with a prison built 20 years ago, of course they won't compare favorably. But public built today versus private built today, they have the same efficiencies of design and operation. So we've been comparing apples and oranges. If you carry, gosh, I feel like I'm in a high school debate. This is
we have 10 seconds
to make it entertaining to you.
Well, you know, this is serious business.
This is serious business.
This is serious business. This is about how we incarcerate people, how we correct crime in New Mexico, and it's not a laughing matter.
That's it.
It is not a laughing matter.
Okay. Just today, the State Department of Labor came out with the unemployment statistics. They're higher than they were in August, and per capita income is one of the lowest in the country. What do you plan to do to attract more business and importantly, better paying jobs? Mr. Johnson.
The number one factor when it comes to better paying jobs is we have to reduce the income tax in the state of New Mexico. I have a proposal on the table with this campaign to reduce income taxes for everybody in the state of New Mexico. It's to lower the top rate from 8.2% down to 6.7%, lower the bottom rate so that 80,000 people that are now paying income tax won't pay it. Bottom line, everybody pays less income tax. That will do more toward creating higher paying jobs in the state of New Mexico than any other single act that we can take. We are competing with Texas at income tax. We're competing with Oklahoma, Colorado, Utah at 5.5%. We're competing with Arizona 5%, and it is statutorily going away. It's about taxes and reducing income taxes.
Thank you, Governor Johnson. Mr. Chavez, what do you plan to do to attract business here and better paying jobs?
Well, first off, both candidates have roughly $100 million tax cut proposals. But when this administration went out to do a study as to why industry chooses not to locate in New Mexico, here's what industry said. One, first, workforce development. The quality of our workforce is the most important consideration. We are graduating students who can't read and write properly. They don't have the technical backgrounds to meet the needs of these new economies. The second biggest concern was infrastructure. When they asked Craig Barrett, the CAO of Intel, about expansion in New Mexico, he didn't say income tax. He said, let's first talk about the regulatory reform in New Mexico, then we'll talk about expansion. This is how you get business done, and I'm looking forward to talking even more about it because I've got great plans.
Okay,
there's no reason why we have to continue to go down in terms of economics.
Our 2-minute open rebuttal is on, so whoever would like to expand.
And then talking about the record, talking about 500 miles of 4-lane highway. That's Highway 44, Farmington to Albuquerque, 285 Klein's Corners down to Carlsbad. That's Highway 54 south of Alamogordo, the border. That's Highway 70 from Las Cruces to Texaco. That's improvements to the Big I in Albuquerque, and that's improvements to 285 north of Santa Fe. This has to make a huge difference when it comes to jobs in New Mexico long term. Couple that with income tax reduction, and then here's the choice I think that voters have. Who stands a better chance of getting that income tax, which is part of this whole equation? I think I've proven that you stand a better chance with Johnson, and if you listen to Marty all evening, what you're going to hear, just start adding this stuff up that he's talking about. I don't know how he's going to pay for it, much less give a tax decrease on top of all that.
Actually, the one who has the best chance of getting something done up there is the one who's actually passed bills in the legislature, and I've done that. One of the things that I'm most proud of was workers' compensation reform in New Mexico. They said it couldn't be done. They said you can't bring business and labor together to resolve workers' compensation. We have brought with that one piece of reform, workers' compensation insurance rates down 65% in the last 6 years, over $200 million back in the pockets of business. Now there's reform that creates wealth. Put that against casinos, which by tax and rev's own estimates have drawn $400 million a year out of the state economy. That's the wrong way to grow an economy. I know how to get these things done. And I'll tell you what, I know New Mexico feels it's wrong to tax food. You ought not to have to pay taxes because you're hungry, and we'll pass that legislation.
Time is wrapping up.
Again, you see the difference here. I hope everybody can see I'm going to really focus on income tax reduction. I think that's the real key. Couple that with better roads, couple that with the fact that you have a better streamlined regulatory environment. I think that's been the prescription.
Go on to the next question.
Yeah, this next question really does not require a rebuttal, so why don't you take a little bit longer to answer it, maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes? Politicians seem to be under the microscope these days, from the president down. A lot of people say a politician's character should really matter. Tell me about the 2 biggest mistakes you've made in your life and what you've learned from them. Mr. Chavez.
Oh, goodness.
Heard that one before?
It might have been going to law school. I'm not sure. I don't know if I would do that one over again. But now that I'm a recovering attorney, I'm getting over it. It's a lesson that I learned every day as mayor of Albuquerque, and that is that you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. You need to listen to people. You need to listen to people. And in the places in my life professionally where I have not been successful, when I haven't gotten a bill passed, it's because I haven't listened enough. And that's one thing I always work on.
That's one problem.
Well, I said the other one was going to law school in the first place. I should have started Big J.
Mr. Johnson.
I guess it'd be Big M. I don't know.
Thanks, Marty. That's good. I guess the biggest surprise I've had having entered into politics is that I always naively thought that Republicans got together, cussed, discussed, and out of that came the best for citizens of the state and citizens in the country. And what I've been surprised by is that the sides line up on politics and maybe citizens end up suffering for that. That the best idea doesn't always survive. You've asked me about two of the biggest mistakes that I've ever made. Tom, I'm not trying to cop out here, but I have so many big mistakes that I've made that to single out just a couple of the big mistakes that list, you know, pages and pages and pages, I don't know if that does me justice.
I wouldn't mind hearing just a few if you want to volunteer it. Or, Mr. Chavez, too, you talked about career mistakes. How about personal mistakes? Mr. Chavez?
Oh, heavens. Not meeting Margaret earlier, and
Tonight or in your life?
and having even more children. We love them so much.
Oh, I think we all, again, I hope I'm speaking on behalf of everybody. We all make mistakes when it comes to people that we associate. We make mistakes in our own lives. We make financial mistakes. We make decisions that affect our health that are adverse. Again, I think, of course, the key is to learn from our mistakes, and I'm not any different than anybody else. If a lot of mistakes, and boy, in the future, I'm sure there'll be a lot more.
Right. Okay, the year 2000 is right around the corner, and there are many experts who are concerned that states, including New Mexico, might not be prepared for the changeover, especially after our computer problems with the state taxation and revenue department. First of all, do you think that Y2K is a threat? And if so, how do you plan to make sure that we are ready for January 1st, 2000? And you get the first opportunity to answer.
Well, in some of the legislation that passed while I was governor, and I signed off on it, is a chief information officer for the state of New Mexico. That's Jim Hall. He makes sure that all the systems that the state of New Mexico is now buying talk to one another, which makes it makes incredible common sense, and yet it hasn't happened until now. Well, it has happened. It's a really good thing. Jim Hall is responsible for assessing whether or not the state of New Mexico is ready for Y2K, for the year 2000, and he believes that we are. And that's to say that we've identified those areas that need to have work, that the work is being conducted, and it is our belief that, again, that we will meet the deadlines and that we're not going to suffer any problems. That isn't to say it won't happen, certainly, but we believe we're ready.
We've got more time. Do you think Y2K is a threat? And if you do, what do you plan to make sure that we are on board, online?
Well, I'm not flying on January 1, year 2000. I'm going to wait and see. I believe that it's a very serious problem. Those who have more expertise than I are deeply concerned, and I share that concern. I am not satisfied that the state has completed its inventory, its complete assessment of the full scope of the problem, and this is the concern. You go into the next session in January, and the plan has got to be ready. The money has got to be appropriated so that you can address it. It's not just a function of what we do in the future, but we have to retrofit whole systems and whole ways that technologies relate to each other. And that's not happening right now. And I'll make sure it happens. I'm not entirely convinced that there's time to do it from here. As mayor of Albuquerque, I set that motion and process years ago.
Okay. Mr. Chavez does not believe that we're entirely ready as a state.
Well, we have a difference here. I think we can leave it at that. Again, that isn't to say that we won't have problems, but it is our belief, as I stand here right now, that we are ready and that the problems that need to be addressed are being addressed, and that we'll do that in a timely manner.
Some of these computer problems have really cost us, I mean, for example, the tax refunds. Now we're paying 15% for a lot of people who haven't received their tax refunds. This is a computer installation thing. How do we protect against things like that?
Well, and again, the reality of these big systems changing over, I think that we expect those kinds of problems. You'd like that they wouldn't occur, but to say that problems aren't going to happen whenever you have a change like this, I just think is ignoring realities. And again, no, we don't want to have any of them occur, but hey, they happen. They happen for all of us.
Mr. Chavez, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think things happen is not good enough. What's gone on tax and rev, certainly they've had computer problems, but they're fundamentally management problems. These are human beings that send refunds to Rin Tin Tin and Lassie, as we've seen just in the last month and a half at tax and rev. These are management issues that give rise to Forbes magazine citing our tax and rev department as perhaps the leading contender for the worst tax department in the United States of America. They're management problems that cause us to buy more computers than we have people in particular state agencies. This isn't a
name for me on that one?
This isn't
specific on that one? I'll look into that.
It's a management problem. Well, I would cite you to the Albuquerque Journal, and questionable source sometimes, but sometimes they're pretty good, of roughly early June of this year, June 12th, 13th.
We've got 15 seconds.
Well, yeah, do tell me,
sure.
And I'll remedy that one.
Okay, we've got, our time's run out on that.
All right, we're going to do something a little different now. Each candidate will ask the other candidate some questions, and I must tell you, I'm looking forward to this. The candidate asking the question has 15 seconds.
Now, the candidate responding has 45 seconds to answer. Following the response, there will be a 1-minute open rebuttal between the two candidates, and we have allotted time for each candidate to ask 3 questions of each other. Mr. Chavez, you have the first question to ask Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, even though federal law did not require it, you brought full casino gambling to New Mexico. Your own agencies estimate a $400 million annual loss from the state economy. Broken families, home foreclosures, and bankruptcies are the downside of gambling. How specifically do you plan to address those problems?
Well, let me just first say that I felt going back 5 years ago, I said I was going to sign compacts with the Indians, and I was elected and did sign compacts with the Indians. I believe that the state of New Mexico has to comply with the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, which is the federal law that oversees all of this. Indian gambling is a part of the United States of America. It's a federal law that's passed, and again, in our implementing that, I think we have done all the right things. The administration has done all the right things in implementing that. And then, Marty, I just wanted to ask you, you know, your own Office of Management and Budget, City of Albuquerque 5-year forecast, December 1997, said that your staff explored alternative specifications but were unable to find any significant reductions in taxable gross receipts due to gambling.
Okay, we have time to exchange.
Sure.
I'd like 1-minute rebuttal.
If I could get an answer to my question, though, how specifically do you plan to address the problems of broken families, home foreclosures, and bankruptcies, which I think you've admitted in the past are the downside of gambling?
Well, and let's just get back to the fact that these are the consequences of gambling, but we are now entering into our 15th year of Indian gambling. 5 years ago, I said, hey, we're 10 years, we're 11 years into Indian gambling. Let's regulate it. Let's share in the revenue. I think everybody believes that. There is a downside to gambling. I've never denied that there is a downside.
But do you have any plan to address the problems created by your gambling?
Well, absolutely. We have Health and Human Services that are within the Department of Health. We have specific areas to deal with, and the tribes and pueblos themselves have taken it upon themselves to voluntarily look into dealing in these problems. We're going to have these problems, but again, from a standpoint of reality, this is our 15th year of Indian gambling.
We're going to go on now.
Mr. Johnson, do you have a question for Mr. Chavez?
Well, in the last TV debate, my opponent has recognized $92 million that I have cut from higher education. I believe that all of the media has clearly pointed out that $77 million of that $92 million went directly from the federal government to colleges and universities in New Mexico. Come on, man. I mean, aren't you lying about a lot of other things if you're doing it on this?
So you've got 15 seconds now.
Oh, Governor, please. I don't think you helped New Mexico by calling people liars. You've done it throughout. You've run ads and all like that. So let me give you your signature on every single veto, and I apologize for this.
And
I apologize for this.
Please. We all have to follow the same rules or this doesn't work.
It's not 90, it's $102 million. And let me also hand you this. This is $68 million worth of vetoes.
You need to read this stuff. You need to read this stuff because what this stuff says, what this stuff says.
$68 million worth of vetoes for kindergarten through 12th grade.
My opponent is running an ad right now that says I cut $92 million from higher education. The money that he is saying got vetoed in here, 77 million of it went directly to colleges and universities in New Mexico. Your ad says, I cut money from higher education, and that money was received. I think I am due an apology.
Oh, Governor, you said the other night.
Read this stuff.
I've read it, Governor. I've been there, and I understand when I've used the veto pen exactly what it means and what I'm vetoing. Now, Those are your lines, your
30 seconds.
$102 million, not just for higher education,
you don't
but
know this.
$68 million for K through 12.
You don't know this, obviously. But there is a Supreme Court decision that says the state of New Mexico cannot allocate federal funds. Obviously, you don't know that.
I know exactly what
so we lined out the language that allows the legislature so that we weren't hauled back into court over something that had happened before. Bottom line, though, you're claiming the money did not go in to higher education, and it went into higher education.
It's $170 million now for education.
You have the opportunity, and actually we liked your questions, but we want to hear more of them. It's your opportunity to ask Mr. Johnson another question.
Sure.
15 seconds only, please.
Okay, Governor, the Patient Protection Act, which you vetoed twice and then finally signed, but vetoed all the enforcement money, didn't provide for the right of a woman to select her physician. Will you join me tonight in advocating a patient's Bill of Rights that gives women the absolute freedom to choose their own physicians in managed care and doctors the absolute right to determine the treatment?
I'm not, and this is not a cop-out, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking for. I have vetoed I vetoed a patient protection bill that I think the last thing we needed was to really gang up on the medical providers for managed care for Medicaid. I think that that's the last thing that we needed. At this point, we don't need to see a situation where we end up putting a big fiscal impact on those organizations. So
let's see if I can be clear.
Okay,
will you join me tonight in advocating a patient's Bill of Rights that gives women the absolute freedom to choose their own physicians in managed care and doctors the absolute right to determine the treatment?
And I will pledge to you that I would look at that, and what I do in all of these particular cases is I look at a cost-benefit analysis. What is this going to cost, and who is it going to cost? Who is it going to cost? Is it going to cost everybody in the state? And what is the benefit going to be? If the cost is minimal and the benefit is a good benefit, yes, that is something that I would back along. And again, this ends up being the analysis that I do on every single thing that passes my desk. What is the cost going to be, Marty? What's going to be the benefit?
There is no additional cost. Here is the benefit.
If there's no additional cost, I'm signed in. I'm a go. I sign it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm go.
Then why did you veto the Patient Protection Act twice, and then when you finally signed it, you line-itemed out all the money to enforce it?
Well, it wasn't enforcing.
And then you went all around the state to say, I signed the Patient Protection Act.
I have never, not once said that I signed the Patient Protection Act. Never touted that.
It was your handout to the Association of
Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, you're up to ask Mr. Chavez.
Man, I got to get back to the $92 million. Were you aware that the Supreme Court of New Mexico ruled that the legislature could not allocate federal funds? So that we saved our legislature from making a mistake, and that this money, this $77 million went to colleges and universities. Are you not really being misleading? And did you not know about the
Governor,
Supreme
there
Court
you go
decision?
again, questioning people's integrity. And I think it's inappropriate of you. I'm very familiar with the Supreme Court decisions on the issue, and I'm very familiar with the fact of what I've handed you, which shows your initials on over $100 million of vetoes for higher education in New Mexico. I'm also aware of what I just handed you.
Your claim wasn't vetoes. Your claim was money. Your claim was money going to the
Governor, he has some time to answer.
You're just not
and then we'll have a rebuttal.
I've also handed you $68 million worth of vetoes, kindergarten through 12. Those are your initials. Now, if you didn't sign it, then let's talk about that. Let's find out what's going on up there. But you certainly knew what you were doing. And this idea of claiming credit for monies for education, when for 4 years you didn't talk about it till you're running for re-election, passed one bill relative to education.
And let the rebuttal begin.
And one of those bills that didn't pass was actually the prescription that 50% of our budget gets spent on education. That didn't pass the legislature.
You wanted to put it into the Constitution. It belongs properly in statute so that elected officials have the flexibility to make those decisions.
So in other words, less money into education.
No. Anybody that's a serious student of government, serious student of the state constitution, understands the difference between statute and constitution. There is no way that would be appropriate lawmaking. It's not done anywhere in the United States of America. That's best decided by people. That's why we elect people.
And I think it gets confusing to everybody. And just need to look at the bottom line. $300 million a year more into education, that's K through 12 today, than when I took office. And that's significant. And that's an increase as a percentage of what we spend on the overall budget, that's an increase every year since I was in,
5
after
seconds.
about a 15-year decline prior to my becoming governor. Now, that's something I said I was going to do, and I did it.
And had you had your way, it would have been fully 43% less.
I think this
and
is our
if you
third
hadn't had your
question.
way, it would have been over $400 million. Our kids need more money in the schools,
Okay,
not
we're going
less
to move
money.
on. We want to hear your questions, okay? Governor, you asked the last question, but you get to ask this third and final question to Mr. Chavez.
Okay, Marty, man, you're making $20,000 a year. You go to your employer for a $6,000 a year raise. He says, man, you're doing a great job. I'm going to give you a $5,000 raise. I say that's a $5,000 raise, but obviously you call that a $1,000 a year cut, right?
Governor, whatever language or vernacular you choose to employ this evening, let me answer your question. New Mexico is growing. The notion that you had that you can hold things at zero growth, like our state police, until the legislature forced you to hire new state police while the state grows, that's a cut. You have to keep pace with the growth of the state in each area of service that you determine is important to provide. So what you've done with education, for instance, now taking credit for more money than you ever proposed, and in fact you opposed in the process, is nothing more than support for cuts. You have vetoed over $170 million for education in New Mexico, K through higher education. Not one of it necessary to balance that checkbook.
1 minute rebuttal begins
because what's
now.
in that checkbook? We've got about a $250 million surplus, $50 million less than you inherited from Bruce King. Why won't you spend it on the schools where they need it? We've got over $163 million.
Did everybody just
in
hear that one real
needs.
quick? He said $50 million
Well,
a year less.
Let me see the checkbook. Let's see it. Let's see it.
$50 million less than when I took office. Actually, Marty, there's $200 million a year more today than when I took office.
Not so. Not so, Governor. Not by your own fiscal...
Oh, no.
This
is another... You need to check the checkbook, man. Here,
see, this is the state checkbook. It's got all the money that we need to fix the overcrowding in our schools. Let's spend it on our children.
We really need to move on here.
Here's another point, though, that he made. He said that the reserves are $50 million less than when King took office. It's $200 million a year more.
Mr. Chavez, you have the... Please don't applaud until the end. Mr. Chavez, you've got the final question.
Sure. Let's talk about good time. You promised to require that violent felons serve at least 85% of their sentences. You vetoed that legislation 3 times, then repeatedly promised to do it administratively even before the election. It never got done. I'll get it done. That's what leaders do. The bottom line is, why haven't you made it happen?
Well, you can't make good time happen. You can't allow criminals or require criminals to serve more time in jail if you don't have the prison space. So that is something that I've concentrated on for 4 years. We're going to have the prison space. When these 2 new prisons come online, it's our intention to get rid of good time, which allows criminals right now to only serve half their time in jail. Getting rid of good time, I believe, will actually reduce crime in the state of New Mexico because we're going to keep criminals locked up. My opponent continually talks about the fact that I vetoed 3 bills when it comes to good time. I vetoed 1 plea bargaining bill, and I vetoed 2 early release bills that would actually have more criminals on the streets today had I have signed those bills.
Sure. Bottom line is that there are ads running now in this campaign that say you're going to serve every last minute of that sentence, when in fact nothing's been done in that regard in 4 years. Nothing but promises, promises, and promises. The latest one was that it would be done administratively even before the election. We've got 7 days left. We're all waiting to see what happens in the next 7 days on that administrative imposition. These are things that I know how to do. I know how to make government work. I respect the process, and I've got the vision and the record to make things happen.
The law reads that you may give a criminal 1 day off for 1 day served. So we believe that the law is clear, that we can eliminate good time administratively. But you can't eliminate good time...
10 seconds.
You can't eliminate good time until you have the prison space. Once we have the prison space, we're going to give the legislature another crack at dotting the I's, crossing the T's to make this... Carly, you got to look at your own signal back there. They're doing the signal, and you're missing the signal.
I have somebody who's an even better timekeeper telling me in my ear, so we're going to move on right now. Actually, we've got a format change, and we will be in control asking the questions again. We have specific individual questions to each of the candidates.
They will get 45 seconds to respond. There is no rebuttal time, but if we have a follow-up question, the candidate gets 30 seconds to respond. Our first question goes to Mr. Chavez. You are in favor of all-day kindergarten, as you've said, and a free college education for our children. The State Department of Education estimates it would cost about $37 million a year to operate all-day kindergarten, plus $67 million in startup costs. How are we going to pay for that? You know, the free college education sounds great too, but how are we going to pay for that as well?
Oh no, Tom, on college education what I said is we need to shift our thinking so that we consider it as a matter of right, not privilege. I'm very clear, I don't have the answer. But once you start looking at it as a matter of right, given the demands of the new technologies and the new digital economy, then you start to find the solutions. But here's where I have very specific answers. Full-day kindergarten will cost $40 million roughly a year, $60 million one time. We have a $250 million surplus. That $60 million is one time only, new classrooms. So next year will only be $40 million if we did the $60 million this year. We will still have $160 million in surplus left over after we have full-day kindergarten. The real question is, why don't we do this when every study indicates that this is a tremendous way to have children succeed?
All right, thank you.
I have a question from Governor Johnson.
Do I get to rebut that? No?
No
rebuttals.
Okay. You pledged to keep your campaign clean, no dirty ads. But a couple of weeks ago, the Republican Party started running a negative attack ad. You said there was nothing you could do. It was a party commercial. Why did you take a stronger stand to pull the ad?
Well, again, and I would hope that people would look at what I have pledged, and I pledge not to mention my opponent in any of my literature, any of my radio advertising, any of my television advertising. Carla, the problem with that ad that the Republican Party ran is that I don't think people distinguish between myself and the Republican Party. I asked them not to run it. They chose not to. I respect John Dindal and the fact that he is elected. That is a difference that we have. And again, I understand your question, and again, I don't think people distinguish between the two.
People before politics, that's what you've been saying.
That's right.
And it seems like it's a very political move to have the Republican Party come out in front.
And it does. It seems that way. Yes, it does. I stand guilty of associating.
As a politician to do that.
Absolutely. Your criticism is, I think, well-founded. Again, people don't distinguish between myself and the Republican Party, and what you're criticizing me for, there isn't any reason why you can't.
Would you ask him to pull them on the air tonight?
John Dindal, please pull the ads that are running right now talking about my opponent. It is something that I pledged I wouldn't do. Please jerk the ads. It's causing a misperception to the citizens of this state that I'm running the ads and not you.
Okay, thank you very much, Governor. Okay. My next question is for you, Mr. Chavez. Mayor Jim Baca is running a commercial saying you did a great job before him, but shortly after he took office, he was quoted as saying you left the city with, in his words, an economic mess. This is a concern of a lot of voters. How can voters be assured you won't spend the state into trouble?
Thank you very much for the question. And first, the governor convened the Central Committee of the Republican Party tomorrow, and to pull that ad, it's within his authority. It doesn't suit his purposes.
Okay, let's get to the question.
Thank you very much for the question. Every budget was balanced, left office with a 5% reserve. Here's what did happen. The last 6 months, gross receipts came in below projection. Below projection, about $5.5 million. Couple that with the repeal of gross receipts on prescription, which I supported, it's about an $8.5 million problem right there. I was the one that imposed the hiring freeze. Remember the pickets out in front of City Hall? I was the one saying, there's not enough money, there's not enough money. I sent the proposals for savings. But nowhere did this city get into financial trouble. Nowhere did it jeopardize our credit. Our credit ratings are the highest in the history.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the observation deck, too.
Sure.
That is something that people did not expect to go way over budget, and it
Me
did.
neither. And thank you for the question. It was supposed to be 1.2 million. It was 2.4 million. I take full responsibility. Frankly, I think it's a fabulous amenity to the city of Albuquerque.
We have to move on.
The Sunport.
To be fair.
And I learned a lesson.
Thank you. Governor, you want to make it legal for New Mexicans to carry a concealed weapon as long as they take a gun safety course?
Yes.
I think is what you're saying.
Yes.
There are a lot of people in the state getting shot in hot-head incidents, road rage, other situations. Wouldn't we see more of that if everyone could have a concealed weapon?
Actually, Tom, and you're probably aware of this, but 30 states now allow for concealed carry. And again, I do want to see that safety requirement. I think there's a reason that that violent crime has diminished nationwide, and I think part of it is due to the concealed carry law that we have. I think that it will actually reduce crime, that it will actually reduce those kinds of hothead incidents that you're talking about, because you just don't know who's carrying and who's not carrying.
Okay, and I'm not anti-gun. I have a gun for hunting at home, but how would it reduce those hothead incidents to have people carrying guns?
Well, you're certainly not going to pull out your gun and have a battle at the corner if you know that if it's a possibility that the person next to you may have that also. I'd like to relay that to potential assault in the parking lot. I think you'll see those kinds of incidents reduced because you just don't know who might be carrying.
Thank you, Governor.
We want to hear from both of you again and give you time for your closing statement.
Right now, each candidate has prepared a closing statement. Each of you will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to speak.
And this is to the audience. You may applaud for your candidate for 15 seconds after he's finished. This time you could applaud. When we ask you to quit, please remain quiet so we can hear from his opponent. And we start with you, Mr. Chavez.
Well, I regret the fact that my opponents run these negative ads, and even this evening has questioned my integrity. But that's his campaign. This election is about which vision will lead New Mexico into the next century. Will it be a vision of casinos and prisons, or will it be a vision of schools and families and children? It's not about a return to the past, but whether we will have the courage, the conviction to invest in the future. As a father, husband, native son of New Mexico, I believe with all my heart that we've got to invest in our children through the schools. Had a great 4-year run as mayor, turned the corner on water, virtually eradicated graffiti, brought down violent crime, air quality attainment status for the first time in modern history, built that bridge, the biopark, the civic plaza. And contrary to the negative ads that they're running, we did it all without a tax increase unless you voted on it, and we did it all with balanced budgets every single time and left office with a 5% surplus. Both of us have proposed $100 million tax cuts roughly. We both pledged not to raise taxes unless you vote on it first. So we'll both spend about the same amount of money. The question is priority. My priority is education and always will be. I'm looking forward to serving with Diane Dennis. She'll be the first female lieutenant governor in the history of New Mexico, but we can't do it without you. This evening, I ask for your support. I ask for your vote. Please keep us in your prayers. God bless each and every one of you.
"15 seconds never felt so good." Now it's Governor Johnson's turn.
When I took office, hundreds of people came out of the woodwork to tell me how to be governor. And while I appreciated the help from each and every one of you, they could have saved themselves the trouble. Everything I really needed to know about being governor, I learned from my parents. And that was tell the truth, keep your promises, do the right thing. These simple concepts have lowered our taxes, improved our economy, built roads, built prisons which will reduce crime, cut government waste, and increased educational funding. In short, it has worked. As citizens of New Mexico, we need one of our own to fight our battles up in Santa Fe. This time it's me, next time it's going to have to be one of you. Career politicians have put New Mexico on the wrong end of every single list when comparing us to other states. We can do better. Vote for me. We have made significant progress.